How's it going, everyone? My name is Will Holden, and I'm the host of the WillPower podcast. Today, our special guest is DeAnn Dillard, and DeAnn is a real estate agent that is with EXP, and she's based down in San Diego, and she's actually on the #1 team in San Diego. So it is an absolute honor to have her on here today. So DeAnn, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks, Will, for having me. It's great to be here.
Of course, my pleasure. So to start off, I kind of want to go into your background a little bit. So can you kind of touch on your childhood, what it was like, and how it kind of turned you into who you are today?
Oh, that's a loaded question. Wow. Okay. Well, I grew up, we were very financially challenged, that's for sure. We moved a lot. My dad lost his job when I was young, and we made a big move about 5 years old. And we struggled after that for a good 10 years. And just seeing my parents always struggle, I think that once I became a teenager, I was determined that I would never live that life. I'd always have a way to support myself and my family. I found different jobs. I worked for the county. I always had like a stable job with benefits and that kind of thing. And then I ended up getting married, and I was a stay-at-home mom for a really long time. And then I got a divorce. So I was single mom with 4 young girls and no job. So I worked at Starbucks as a manager for a small time while I was had a friend who said, "Hey, you should get a real estate license." And he literally was like, "Just put your picture on a sign and you'll be fine." And my grandpa was in real estate, and I always loved that industry. And I asked him to help me, and he discouraged me and said that it was too hard of a position to get into. So I never did it. And then when my friend suggested it and I was single, I was like, well, what do I have to lose? I'm working at Starbucks, right? So I got my real estate license. So that's the short version.
Yeah, well, I'm sure that was a huge confidence boost when your grandfather told you it's too hard to do that. So
right?
That's kind of wild. I also want to kind of touch on childhood a bit, because it's always interesting to me, because a lot of the people I have on my podcast surprisingly come up with the same background as you, kind of like they're kind of on the more poor side of things, and they always feel like their backs are kind of against the wall, and the only way to come out is to actually go hard, all in on something, and then eventually like they do make it become like really successful in the long run, which is what happened to you. So I'm kind of curious, like, do you think if you were upper middle class to like wealthy status when you were growing up, do you think you would be in the same position you are today?
Absolutely not.
Absolutely not.
No. And I see it too often with a lot of people, a lot of younger people who kind of millennials, and they were given so many things, they don't have any drive. Not all of them, but a lot. I see it a lot. And with my own children, I made sure that they worked as kids all the time, even for me having to earn money. I think that being poor, I mean, we had food stamps. There was time we had no food, no car, right. That I would start little businesses. I would entertain my family for a quarter. Coming up, when I was in my early 20s, I probably had 3 or 4 different businesses that I started. I sold clothes. I created like a basket type business. I was always trying to figure out, how do I do this? But I had no tools. I didn't go to college. I had no idea. But it really drove me, I think, to never want to be in that position, especially as a parent, having to raise a family and not have food or transportation.
Right. Yeah. Like when you grow up in that kind of situation, like your whole mindset is kind of different. Like you decide like, okay, I'm never going to have this happen to me ever again. Not going to go through this, and develop like a certain kind of drive in your head and a good, like different kind of grit. And you kind of take that with you through your whole life. And so like I experienced that too. And like you said, as a parent, like I love you said, like my kids are going to pay for their own bills. They're going to still work hard and do a lot of stuff. My parents are the same way. And, it's kind of brings me to this question, like, for kids that kind of grew up in like that middle class kind of thing, like how do you kind of still grow that grit and drive, even though your back's not necessarily like against the wall, like you're not necessarily poor, like that? Like what would you recommend for that?
That's a great question. My kids were considered the bougie rich kids at the school. We had everything. We had a beautiful home on the lake, and we went on amazing vacations, and we did a lot of great things. But they also were the kids whose parents didn't pay for their things. I literally made my kids work. They bought their own school clothes. If they wanted some cool video game or whatever everyone had, they had to work because I was working full time. They're teenagers. If had time on their hands to lay around, I'm like, well, you can go work for me. And I, as a real estate agent, they would stuff envelopes for me, put stamps on, do filing, and I would pay them really well, actually, which a lot of people were like, oh, you give your kids that much money. Well, yeah, I made them work for that money, and you just buy those things for your kids. So, they would come back with comments to me like, Mom, my friends don't have to pay for their own clothes. But
Right.
But they're all amazing women who've been through college, who've learned, they're young and they're supporting themselves. They're also in real estate. So making them have to do that and be different than the rest of the kids in school, I think also put that drive in them to say, hey, I have to take care of myself. My mom's not going to give me everything.
Yeah, I love that. And they're definitely going to take those skills with them throughout their whole entire life, no matter what they go into. Like you said, they're going to real estate as well. So, I mean, it's just great to have that mindset already when you're going into an industry that's already super challenging to become successful.
Right. You have to have a work ethic for sure. It just doesn't happen.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. So kind of jumping back into your story. So after high school, did you end up going to college or no?
I did not go to college. My dream was to go to the Fashion Institute and to be a fashion designer. But as I was trying to figure that out in high school, I did not have the support of my parents. They never went to college, and they did not see that as something that we could do. They literally were like, well, that's not really for us. And they didn't help me. And I was very discouraged. And I didn't do well in high school. I actually didn't graduate from high school. Oh, wow. I dropped out of high school, and I went to adult school, which was like 1 day a week. And I couldn't even get through that. And so I didn't graduate. Eventually in my 20s, I took my GED. I was lost. I didn't know how to go to college, and it was one of my biggest regrets. So I wanted all my girls to be able to go to college. And that's one thing that I did, was able to put all my kids through college also.
That's awesome. Congratulations on that. That's a huge accomplishment.
Yeah, thank you.
So after high school, then, was your first job the Starbucks manager position?
No, when I had been working since I was like 14 years old. I was always like babysitting or house sitting or whatever I could do to make money. And then when I was 16, I worked at Del Taco. That was a great job. And then it was like Pizza Hut. And when I graduated from high school, I went to work for the county. My parents both, like I said, we grew up kind of poor, and they didn't have jobs or skills, and they ended up with the county in social services, and they had great jobs, and they had retirement and benefits. And for them, they saw, well, this is a great opportunity. You should go work for the county, that they finally found some stability in their lives. And I did that. And I, when I was 18, I worked for the county for a good 5 years, probably.
Gotcha. So I'm kind of curious, like when you were growing up, obviously things weren't the easiest for you. Obviously you didn't graduate high school, you kind of poor growing up. So did you ever have that mindset where you're just, okay, I'm never going to be able to accomplish my dreams or become like a millionaire in people's eyes? Like, did you ever have that mindset, or did you always have that deep down mindset? It was like, okay, even though all this stuff is happening to me, I still believe that I can still make it happen in my life just at some point.
That's a great question, Will, because it's a little bit of a cognitive dissonance. Because I always have that drive, and I've always been determined I'm going to accomplish this, and I'm a goal setter, and I'm going to do this. And I've done things that I never even thought I could do. But in the back of your mind, because you grow up that way, there is that, well, I'm not good enough, or that imposter syndrome where you're fighting yourself all the time, and you have so much drive to accomplish. But in the back of your mind, you always think, oh, I'm not good enough. And I think that kind of goes with a lot of people who have the A-type personality, is that they are constantly competing with themselves. Like, how much can I do? Can I accomplish that? So it's a little bit of both, for sure.
A little bit of both. Okay, that's good.
I think that's what drives us, right? Because if we were content, oh yeah, I'm so great, I can do everything, we wouldn't push ourselves to keep going.
Exactly.
Yeah,
that's a really good answer. Because obviously, because in the back of your mind, you got to realize okay, I know I can do it. But at the same time, it's what happened in my past, it's gonna be a lot harder. But head down and drive. Right,
and you always doubt yourself. I think we're our biggest critics. Everybody else is looking at all these accomplishments and saying, "Oh, you're doing awesome. You're killing it." And in my mind, I'm going, "Oh my gosh, I haven't done enough. I haven't done enough." So it's always kind of fighting with yourself.
Exactly. Okay, so kind of fast forward in your life a little bit. One of your friends reaches out to you and tells you should go into real estate. So what makes her or him reach out to you and tell you this information?
He was a lender, a mortgage lender, and he was a friend of mine. And he had known I was going through this divorce, and I'm like, I'm single mom. What am I going to do? And he was doing really well. He was very successful right before the crash, and he's like, it's a no-brainer going to real estate. It's like the easiest thing to get in, and you make a ton of money, right? And for me, I was like, oh, okay, that's easy. I'll do that. And it was just kind of I really didn't think it through. It was just kind of a knee-jerk reaction. But I actually haven't spoke with him for a while, but I reached out a couple years ago and thanked him for that little bit of advice. I feel like it was divine intervention, right? It was meant to be, and I was like, okay, I'll do that. So that's what happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, like, at that point in your life, like you were so busy, like you're a single mom, you're working so like a single mom in itself is like a job, like, you know what I mean? Like that's so much work.
It was crazy.
Yeah. So like, how were you able to find the time to like pass a real estate course and find a brokerage, do all this stuff on the other side of things? Like, how were you able to do that?
It was brutal. It was really brutal because I had 4 small children and trying to get them back and forth to school. I worked at Starbucks, so I worked actually the night shift, so I wouldn't get home until 11, 12 o'clock at night. And yeah, I had my oldest daughter was a teenager, and then the other ones were under 10. And so she was a big help. Like she grew up really fast too, helping to raise her sisters. And then I employed my parents to drive them around. So I would study during the day and then go to work at night and then have people help me. Yeah.
That is super inspirational because I know a lot of people out there like, oh, I don't have the time to do anything I want to, start side business or anything like that. And then here you are doing all your other things on the side and still getting a real estate license.
I think I've been saying that for a good 30 years. I don't have enough time.
Right.
Yeah. But you just figure it out, you know, you don't watch TV and you don't go out and you have a goal in mind. And I had all these kids to take care of. And if I didn't do something, nobody was going to get fed. And I wasn't going to go back to the way I grew up with my parents, not having jobs and no food on the table.
Yeah. And I think like at that point too, like it's all depends like how motivated you are. Like you really want it bad enough, you're going to find time to make it happen. I think a lot of people never reach that level of like, I don't really want it that bad. Like I kind of want it kind of thing. But like in your situation, you had such a powerful why where it's like you had to do this because you had to become successful. You had to be there for your daughters and stuff like that. So that's super inspirational to see.
Yeah, it was like a do or die situation. You know, you just figure it out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, so now you got your real estate license, and then was EXP the first brokerage that you joined?
Absolutely not. No, I didn't know anything about what I was doing. And I just sought out who's the biggest name that I know, right? So I lived in the desert at that time. There was a boutique brokerage that was actually like the most popular, the most well-known in the area. So I just went and spoke with the broker and she was extremely happy to hire me. Like it's easy to get a broker to hire you, right? They're just like, sure, sign with us and go sell real estate. And that's basically what happened. I had no idea what I was doing and I had no direction and no training, barely minimum, like here's how you write a contract. So yeah, I literally had to Google like, how do I be successful in real estate? Yeah, it was tough. So no,
I just took the real estate test as well, and it's like it doesn't really tell you like how to become a realtor. You know what I mean? It's just like the laws and basic stuff like that. It doesn't tell you like how to get like leads or do deals or write contracts or anything like that. So it's a lot of like stuff on your own that you got to work.
Which is too bad. It's unfortunate. I help a lot of brand new agents get their license. And I kind of tell them just get through that as fast as you can because the real estate test doesn't really teach you how to be a realtor. Right. It's a bunch of laws that we really don't see or worry about day in and day out. We need to know how to build a business, how to find clients. Yeah.
Yeah. So were you still working at Starbucks while you were a realtor at the beginning, or you just quit Starbucks and fully realtor?
Yeah, no, I quit that job. I remember it was New Year's Eve and I didn't want to work on New Year's Eve. And I had my license and actually I had gotten remarried at that time. And so I had a little bit of transition time to become a realtor and get with the company and stuff.
Gotcha. Was that scary though? Because obviously, like, at the moment where you just started out, you didn't have any income coming in yet, and you also just quit your job. So like that
I
would be a
did.
scary
So I was
transition.
married at that time, so I felt like I had some kind of security there. So I was able to take a little bit of time. But soon after being married, again, I realized that I needed to take care of myself and my kids no matter what. I needed to, as a woman, be self-supporting and make sure that my kids could have what they want and that we didn't have to rely on another person. So that's when I just kind of really dove in really hard to learning how to build a business.
I love that.
Yeah.
And so while you were doing all that diving in, that self-educating pretty much going into real estate, how was your first year? Like, what did you do sales wise? And obviously, like, I'm sure.
So like I said, I didn't have training and I just started to Google stuff. I started to follow Tom Ferry. I started to follow who's the big guys. I found the number one person in my area and I literally just stalked them and spied on them and copied them. So after that, my goal was to do one a month. I was like, well, if I can sell one house a month, I'll be good. That's great, right? That's super simple. And I did. So, and at the time I didn't realize that was really good, actually, kind of for, I didn't do like, you hear these stories of people, oh, I did 40 in my first month. Like, I don't know who does that, but there's people out there.
That's crazy.
Yeah. But I just thought if I can do one a month, and I did. And I was like, oh, okay, I got this. And then every year my goal was to double that and double that and double that. And so I just learned the systems and figured out how to scale it. Yeah.
Have you been able to double that every year?
Not every year, but I did like the first 3 or 4 years.
Impressive.
Yeah. So the next year was like, I'm going to do 24. If I can do 12, I can do 24. That's only 2 a month, right? One every 2 weeks. And I was able to do that. And then the next year I added another 12. So another 12, like every year was my goal. And then around that 30 home mark, it's just me, right? And I had no idea how to go to the next level. And I was still with the brokerage that really didn't help us to advance. So I just hung out around that 30 home a year mark.
Gotcha. And then at that point, did you then switch over to EXP?
I didn't. So I actually, the guy that I was stalking, who was the number one in the desert area, he actually approached me and asked me if I wanted to form a team with him. So I was like, hell yeah. I've been copying you for years.
I love it.
Yeah, it was great because I was like, are you kidding? I was like starstruck. I was like, really? I want to join your team. So he only had like 3 people at the time. So there was like 5 of us. And he helped me to scale up and learn what he was doing, which I was already copying. But really giving me the inside secrets, and he's great. I love him. We're really good friends. And he actually became the broker of the company that we were working for, and he's built like 120 person team now.
Wow.
And yeah, and so I love them, and I got a lot of help from them, and then I moved out of the desert to San Diego, and that's when I joined EXP.
Gotcha. I love it. It's kind of funny to me how, like, in school you kind of get yelled at or you fail a class if you get caught copying. But then, like, in the real world, the business world, if you copy someone that's like super successful, you become super successful. And it's like the go-to thing to do. I
tell everybody I'm not that creative, but I'm a really good copier. Yeah, so I will copy you. Something good out there.
Yeah, you can just shadow them, do what they're doing, and they're already laying out there, the foundations, and then implement that, and then you're going to get the same results.
I literally was at a listing appointment, and this guy's flyer was on the seller's table, and they walked out of the room, and I went over there and snapped a picture of it. And I created the same exact flyer and started sending it out, and hey, it worked.
I love it. It's genius. It's absolute genius. And so when you joined into this new team with this really good guy you were copying this whole time, like, what are some of the strategies and tips that he's kind of taught you that helped you get to where you are? Because, like, for new agents that are kind of coming in the industry, like, what are these tips and strategies that they should be doing that you did with this guy on this new team?
It was the basics. It was basically like find out where your streams of income are going to come from and work on those. And we were big on farming. I built a business on farming and social media. And we were good collaborators because he had these ideas that I didn't have, and I had these other things that I was learning about, and we were sharing with each other all the time, which really helped us all grow. So I think when you're starting out and trying to grow, you just figure out, okay, there's 20 ways, right, to make money in this business. You just pick 3 or 4 and really go hard at them. Is it going to be farming? Is it going to be social media? Is it going to be cold calling? Is it going to be open houses? And I love all of those things. So we really just kind of put our minds together, and he was always there for support. I think that's what I never had before, was like, hey, what do you think about this system? In this industry, people don't want to help you.
Right,
it's
competing, yeah.
It's very secretive, and I would reach out in my old brokerage for help all the time, and they think you're their competition, so they don't want to share with you, like, this is how I got that listing, and this is how I got this buyer. Right. So with him, I found just a lot of collaboration and a lot of sharing of our secrets, so to speak. Right. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, like just like you were talking about, like you can double check like your decisions. You can have his confidence instilled into you by double checking everything that's happening. And that's why I also love EXP as well, because like they do want to see you succeed because they succeed when you succeed. So
100%.
It's a win-win for everyone. So I mean that's super cool strategy. And so I'm kind of curious, like if you were doing so well with this guy in the desert brokers, why did you decide to switch and then go to San Diego and join EXP?
I had been planning for a good 4 or 5 years to move to San Diego. Gotcha. Actually, I mean, that was my dream since I was like 12 years old. And I was in the desert because I got married, and my husband at the time lived there. And so I always wanted to get out of there and move to San Diego. And I had put this plan together. And eventually that came to be a point where I'm like, okay, I have to do this. So I literally left a very successful business. I had like 28 listings at the time, and I just left everything and just referred it out, and then came to San Diego. So that was just my motivation, was to live here coastally. And so it was a big deal to leave a business that I had built up for, a good 7-8 years. And my agenda was just to find the best of the best and join them. And so I didn't really understand EXP. When I'm a big social media, and I follow a lot of people on social media. So I would see all the big players in real estate were moving to EXP, and I was like paying attention, like, what is this? What's going on here? So that I saw was something coming up, but I didn't really understand. So I sought out who was number 1 in San Diego, and they were with EXP. And so that's kind of how I got started.
Wow, I love it. And so how long ago was this when you joined EXP?
February 2020.
2020. So last year. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, it's been about a year and a half.
Yeah, it's crazy too, because I only found out about EXP like a year ago too, and it's crazy the amount of growth that they're doing per year. Like it's actually insane,
right?
Yeah,
it's crazy.
Super cool stuff.
Yeah.
And so I'm kind of curious, because obviously you're on the number 1 team now in San Diego,
mm-hmm.
and obviously you're doing really well yourself. So just some like general tips that you'd recommend for people that are just getting started like industry. Like, do you do a lot of stuff on social media? Like, what are your main platforms to get leads? Like all that fun stuff.
Yeah, so that's a loaded question too, because I left like a successful business and then started over from the very beginning. I didn't know anyone, but I'm like, hey, I've built businesses before. It's not a big deal, right? I'll do it. And then about a week later, COVID hit, and we were completely shut down. So I couldn't even meet people or door knock or open house or whatever. Yeah. So it just depends on where you're at in your career. Like for someone who's a brand new agent, you just start from the very beginning. Like I said, decide where you're going to get your stream of income from. The quickest, easiest way is door knocking, cold calling, and open houses. And it's just the fastest way to get clients. I think if you're brand new, the best thing you can do is join a team. I joined a team like you said, and I'm a seasoned agent. Like I could have came here and done this on my own. But what a team has to offer you in support is just something you can't really get on your own. You can do like I did in the very beginning, which is spend years researching and following people on YouTube. But if you get with a team, you're going to have your support, and especially with EXP, that model is like no other. And I've been with several brokers where you have an abundance of support and people willing to guide you step by step and show you, hey, here's how to build a business, here's how to get clients, which is something you don't find with every brokerage out there.
Yeah, absolutely. And so one of the things we were talking about was that getting started is like, it's good to do like door knocking, just cold calling and open houses. So I'm kind of curious, like, where do you find the list to do like cold calling stuff? Because isn't there like a do not call like registry kind of thing where it's like illegal to call people or something?
Yeah, there is. So I've gotten lists several ways. You can pay for a list. There's a couple services out there that you can pay to have a list. I love calling absentee owners. I wish I had more time. Like I could spend 4 hours on the phone calling people. I love it. And absentee owners are great because they aren't hostile. They're not expired. And it's not their personal home that they live in. So there's not so much an emotional attachment sometimes, or they need to find another place, or, where will we go? It's a vacation home or a rental property. So I think that's a gold mine that's not really tapped so much by agents. And then there's services that you can subscribe to. Like we use Cole Realty Resource. That one I found years ago, and it's phenomenal. You can literally, if you have a listing or an open house, you can literally go in, drop a pin, a mile radius, and get all the phone numbers for everybody, right? That's around that listing, and you can literally just pick up the phone and say, hey, I have a buyer interested in this area. Have you had any thoughts of selling? Simple, right? Yeah. And you get people hanging up on you and cussing at you. And then, every 20 calls or so, you get someone say, well, I was thinking about it. So yeah. Yeah. And then I use Mojo Dialer. That's great. You can get expireds and FSBO phone numbers on there. It's pretty amazing the accurate information that there is out there. It's cell phone numbers.
Yeah. I never heard about that. So that's pretty cool.
I'll have to send you all that info.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah,
there's an abundance of info out there.
Yeah, a lot of people I talk to, like, they make it sound so easy. Just like you just pick up the phone, call people. 1 out of 20 is gonna say yes, and there you go. That's your deal for the month, something like that.
It's easy.
Yeah. So I'm kind of curious, like, what is the main reason that people fail in the real estate industry, from your opinion and what you've seen in the past? Because obviously you built a lot of teams and done all that stuff. So what's that number one reason that they fail?
My personal opinion, number one reason is not following your schedule.
Not following your schedule?
Not following a schedule, absolutely. And time blocking, because it's so easy. You're your own boss. There's nobody knocking down your door telling you to go to work, right? So you have to be self-motivated. And I think, every day I write my schedule on an old-fashioned, calendar out every day. I do have my Google Calendar and all that, but because I need to constantly make sure that I'm on track. And I think that when you just get up and you say, okay, I have a couple things to do here and people to follow up here, you're never going to have structure. And like we were talking about earlier, people saying they don't have enough time. Well, if you time block it, you do. I literally time block what time I wake up and going to the gym and what time I have lunch. And so I literally think scheduling is probably your number one important thing to do.
I think that's a really great point. And from my experience of what I've heard so far, like my podcast and interviewing other people as well, it's a matter of fact that like people that don't develop in personal development are often the ones that don't fail, or people that don't have that right mindset often fail. So like when you were growing up, obviously you had that mindset in place, like, okay, I got to get the grit and the determination to make sure I follow through with what I'm doing. I think you've carried that with you throughout your whole career. And people that are also focused on personal development, reading those kind of books, like they understand the bumps that they're going to go down like on that road, and they're going to understand the ups and downs that they have to cross. And I think that people that end up failing, that don't do that proper scheduling or property time management stuff, is people that don't do that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? So like, have you seen that kind of correlation as well from your experience?
100%. Mindset is so huge. When I was growing up, probably early 20s, late teens, I came across Tony Robbins, like a box of cassettes, right? Yeah. And I would listen to that stuff over and over again. And I've always been, a self-help junkie, I guess, and as much as I know over the years, like I'm still every day listening to good stuff, putting it in your mind, like exercising my mindset every day. And, getting up in the morning and having a great morning routine and putting good stuff in your mind and challenging yourself with all that. I think that's super key and super important. And I think a lot of people, especially young people, don't understand how important it is.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's super interesting to me that you brought up the Tony Robbins part, because I vividly remember listening to like my first like personal development speech kind of thing. Like I was just on YouTube and I stumbled across like Eric Thomas and one of his speeches.
Oh,
like,
I love him. Yeah.
Like I feel good right now. You know what I mean? Like I want to go spread something. Like I just remember that feeling for some reason. I feel like ever since that moment, like, wow, I want to get better. And like
it's so good. That's great. I used to pay my children, another way for them to make money was to read books. So I would give them, and they could do audio in literally 10 hours. I'd give them $10 an hour, so they can make $100 to read a book, right?
That's awesome.
But hey, they've read like Think and Grow Rich and Tony Robbins stuff and How to Win Friends and Influence People. So as teenagers, they were learning all this stuff, and now that's who they are also. But yeah, that was money well spent.
Yeah, that's going to help them so much more in the long run.
Right?
Didn't read those books, for sure. So before we run out of time, I just have one more question for you. So kind of looking at the future, like what are some of your top goals that you want to get accomplished, whether it's business-wise, personal-wise, or anything of that nature?
I think my number one goal right now is to continue to develop the team I have, the downline with EXP. I think I love helping new agents and helping other agents just scale up their businesses. And I think I'll probably eventually transition into some type of coaching role. I'm already kind of doing some mentorship and stuff, but I think that that's really going to be what I love. I'd love to see people who have no idea, the eyes light up when they go, oh my gosh, really? That's what I have to do. And I can do that, and to see them succeed. I think that's my favorite thing on the planet. So I'm going to eventually go that way.
I love that. It's really great goals. Love it.
Thanks.
So before we head off, is there anything else you'd like to say? And if people want to reach out to you, how can they find you?
Yeah, you can literally just Google me or you can reach me on my Instagram. It's DeAnn Dillard Real Estate, and Facebook DeAnn Dillard Real Estate. If anyone has any questions, I love sharing and helping people develop their business.
Awesome. All right, guys, there you have it. DeAnn Dillard, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks, Will, for having me.